In January of 2016, at the Cyclocross World Championships in Zolder, Belgium, officials found an electric motor hidden inside a racing bicycle. It is the only time it has ever happened. In the entire recorded history of competitive cycling, across every Grand Tour, every World Championship, every Classic, there is exactly one confirmed case of a hidden motor. So the sport had a decision to make, not about whether cheating existed, about what it costs. The answer came 3 months later, and the strangest part of it is not the punishment, it is that nobody was there to receive it. The rider was Femke van den Driesche. She was 19 years old, Belgian, and one of the most promising young cyclocross riders in the country. She held the European Under-23 title and the Belgian Under-23 title. The motor was found in a bicycle in her pit area during an equipment check at the World Championships. It is worth knowing what was actually in the frame, because the sanction only makes sense next to it. According to the UCI's own account of the case, the machine carried a concealed motor of the commercially available seat tube type, with its battery, operated by a Bluetooth switch hidden under the handlebar tape. It was identified using magnetic resonance scanning, the tablet-based system the governing body had introduced that same season. This was not an ambiguous reading or a suspicious heat signature. It was a motor, a battery, and a switch, in a bicycle, at a World Championship. On the 26th of April, 2016, the UCI Disciplinary Commission published its decision. It found a violation of Article 1.3.010 in combination with Article 12.013 bis. The offense has a name in the rulebook: technological fraud. The sanction was a 6-year suspension. 6 years. For a 19-year-old, that is the whole of a career, and it is worth putting that number against the sport's other great enforcement regime. Under the World Anti-Doping Code, a first serious anti-doping violation carries a 4-year sanction. The rider caught with a motor received 6. The ban was backdated to begin on the 11th of October 2015 and to run until the 10th of October 2021. That backdating reaches back nearly 3 months before the motor was ever found. It is worth being careful about what that date does and does not mean, because this is where most retellings go wrong. Reporting at the time noted the obvious implication that the sport had reached back beyond the World Championships. But the UCI made no finding about any race before Zolder. No motor was ever found in any other machine. The backdating wipes results. It does not establish what happened in them, and treating it as though it proves a season of cheating is an inference, not a ruling. The rest of the sanction was comprehensive. Every result she had recorded from that October date onward was disqualified. Both the European and the Belgian Under-23 titles were taken back. She was fined 20,000 Swiss francs. She was ordered to return the medals and the prize money she had received in connection with the disqualified competitions, and to pay the costs of the proceedings, in an amount the Commission said would be set out in its full reasoned decision. That last detail is worth pausing on, because it is the part somebody had to carry out by hand. Cyclocross prize money at under-23 level is not a fortune. The sums were small, but every organizer whose podium she had stood on was owed a correction, and the result sheets of those races had to be rewritten around an absence. Now the sequence, which is the part almost nobody has read in order. The disciplinary hearing was scheduled for the 15th of March 2016 at the UCI's headquarters in Aigle, Switzerland. On the 14th of March, the day before it was due to sit, Femke van den Driesche announced her immediate retirement from cycling and abandoned her case. She did not attend. She did not contest the finding. The panel with the power to rule on the only hidden motor ever found in the sport heard nothing from the person it was ruling on. A disciplinary hearing does not stop because the accused is not in the room. The commission proceeds on the file in front of it. 6 weeks later, the decision came down. Read the order of events again. A motor is found in January. In March, the day before her hearing, the rider quits the sport and walks away from the case. In April, the sport bans her from it for 6 years. The suspension was real and it was enforceable. It stripped her titles and it clawed back her prize money. But the central thing a ban actually does, which is to remove somebody from competition against their will, had already been done voluntarily, by her 6 weeks earlier. Cycling's only enforcement action for a hidden motor landed on a rider who had already gone. Her account of the bicycle is part of the record too, and it changed. Her initial position, given publicly in the days after Zolder, was that the machine was not hers at all. She said it belonged to a friend, that it was identical to her own, and that it had been prepared for her by mistake. She said she would never cheat, and that she had done nothing wrong. Later, speaking as she abandoned her case, she conceded the central point. She accepted that acquittal was impossible, and that the bicycle in the pit was hers. What she continued to maintain was that she never raced it. Both halves of that belong in the story. The finding against her is that a non-compliant bicycle with a concealed motor was in her possession at a world championship. It is not a finding that she rode a motor to a result, and this video will not claim otherwise. Brian Cookson, the UCI president at the time, said the organization had invested considerable resources in developing the new scanning technology and in strengthening the sanctions applicable to anyone found cheating in this way. Speaking at the championships themselves, he had been blunter still. It was absolutely clear, he said, that there was technological fraud and that there was a concealed motor. That statement is accurate. The scanner was new that season and it worked. It is the reason there is a case at all. But look at what the sport's single victory actually consisted of. It caught a 19-year-old. She gave one explanation, then abandoned it. She quit the day before her hearing. She never appeared to defend herself. The verdict was delivered to an empty chair 6 weeks after the only person who could have contested it had already left the sport for good. The one case cycling has ever proved, it effectively won by default. And then consider what has happened since, because that is the real measure of a deterrent. Her suspension expired in October of 2021. In the decade that followed Zolder, she has remained the only rider the governing body has ever sanctioned for technological fraud. Not the first of several, the only one. There have been other confirmed cases in that time, and every one of them has come from outside the professional ranks. Amateurs, masters riders, club racers at regional events. Several of them were caught not by the governing body's scanning program at all, but by thermal cameras, or by organizers who looked at a result and decided it did not make sense. At the top of the sport, across 10 more years of racing, the count is still 0. If you want the rest of these cases taken apart the same way, with the record rather than the rumor, subscribe to the Peloton Files. That 6-year ban is regularly held up as evidence that cycling takes technological fraud seriously. It might be. Story is a single data point, drawn from a single uncontested case against a teenager who had already walked away, in a sport that in the 10 years since has never caught a professional road rider doing the same thing. You cannot build a deterrent out of one example that nobody turned up to fight. You can only build a story out of it, and the story is all anybody has had.